Okay, so next we're going to go over one of our scheduling tools. This is the Shift Pattern tool. To get there, of course, we've clicked on our schedule. Next, we can click what department, sub-department, and shift we want to work. For this example here, I'm just going to choose our demo department and hit go to load that department page. You can see we've got some fake people scheduled in here, and what we're going to do is we're going to add Pluto and Mickey's lines to their blank rows. We're going to do this using a couple different tools. But they will still be pattern tools. Pattern tools, or to use the shift pattern, we want to have employees whose schedules reoccur every week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, etc. So the first thing that we do if we want to add someone's pattern, let's say that Pluto's pattern started at the very beginning of this month, the 1st. I can just simply click on that box next to his name, and then another box pops up, right? This highlighted one in blue right here says add, replace, or remove shift pattern. That's currently our objective. So we're going to click add, replace, or remove shift pattern, and it's going to ask us which one we want to do. In this case, we're going to add a pattern to this row, and we want to assign Pluto, who is in the system right here. We could reselect the start date of this pattern if we wanted to, if we maybe have clicked it wrong the first time, but we're just going to select the first in this case. The first pattern tool that I want to show you is this visual pattern tool right here. This is the most common one, the easiest to use, and it works in most cases. Whenever someone's pattern repeats every week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we can use this tool. So I'm going to click on it and show you what I mean. It asks us right here how often this pattern is going to repeat itself every week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. If I just select the 1 week, it just comes up with the next 7 days, starting on January 1st. And then it asks us to select the days that Pluto would work. So let's say that Pluto works one of the most basic patterns, a 5-2 pattern, 5 days on, 2 days off. And that those 5 days on is Monday through Friday. We'll simply click through and click the days that he works on. We're going to skip Saturday and Sunday because he works Monday through Friday. So we've clicked Tuesday through Friday and then Monday right here. We'll submit it. It will show us those days once again, and then we can process this pattern. It asks us if we want to notify the employee by text. You can choose yes or no. In this case, we're just going to choose no. Update in progress. It lets us know that it might take a few minutes to add this pattern. Whenever we're dealing with patterns, again, it's going to carry on week by week, month by month. And so it takes a second or two for this pattern to load fully on the page. I'm going to click close. And when I do, we may or may not see Pluto's pattern here. We could see the first week of it. Again, it'll take a while for that to load, but we can hit refresh whenever and see where Pluto's pattern is at. So after we've refreshed the page, we can see that Pluto's pattern has increased by a little bit. What we can do is move on and continue and come back to this, and it won't inhibit Pluto's pattern from being added to the schedule at all. So next we're going to add Mickey's pattern to the schedule using that numeric sequence tool. So let's say that this pattern instead starts on the 3rd. We're going to go through the same process and hit add, replace, or remove the shift pattern. We're still going to add this pattern. We're still confident with the 3rd, and we want to choose Mickey down here at the bottom. Instead of choosing the visual pattern tool, we're going to choose the numeric sequence tool. The numeric sequence tool is for patterns that don't repeat every week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. So an example of that would be a 4-2 pattern. Maybe they work 4 days on and 2 weeks. 4 days on and 2 days off. This pattern isn't going to repeat itself for another 7 weeks or so. We're going to select the shift pattern, and I'm going to select 4-2 right here, which means 4 days on and 2 days off. If you can't find one of those typical numeric sequence patterns in here, you could go to add patterns to your list and add our comprehensive list of patterns by simply selecting the box next to it and saving it. That then will be added to your personal library for your personal facility right here. But again, I just want to select 4-2 to add him to his row. I'll then hit process after checking to make sure that these are the days that I want him to work. Same notification pops up, whether I want to notify my employee by text. I'm going to hit no, and I, of course, realize that it might take a few minutes for this pattern to load on this schedule. So that is how you add patterns to the schedule using both the numeric sequence and the visual pattern tool. The next thing that we are going to do is actually remove someone's pattern, and then we'll also practice replacing someone's pattern. So I'm going to hit refresh here again. You could see that Pluto's pattern will be added probably all the way here, and you can see that Mickey's is starting to be added as well. So the first thing that we're going to do is let's say hypothetically that Daisy has quit, or that she's been fired, or that she's leaving this facility for whatever reason. What we'd want to do is click on Daisy's row, right? It doesn't matter really when, because it'll ask us what day, but I'm just going to click on the first day of this month. Let's say that she left on the 1st of this month, right? So I'm going to click the first day she was scheduled. We're still dealing with patterns, so we're going to hit add, replace, or remove. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to replace an employee on this row. You might think that we want to remove an employee, and that might be the case if we're changing shift patterns completely. But let's just say that Daisy's leaving the facility. I'll show you why we hit replace in a minute. I'm going to hit replace, choose the start date on the 3rd when that pattern started, and I'm going to assign a new employee. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom and assign unassigned. The employee that I'm replacing is still down at the bottom, and that's Daisy. So again, I've chosen to replace Daisy with an unassigned schedule. I'm going to process that, not notify by text, and close. What this is going to do, and I might need to refresh the page again for it to recognize it, is it's going to replace all of Daisy's shifts with an unassigned placeholder. And that's exactly what it is. It's a placeholder for the next employee that you will have scheduled there. It's like a revolving door. If Daisy's leaving, but we still value that pattern that she has, we can simply replace it with unassigned, and then later on, replace that unassigned with whatever employee we've hired or brought over to this location. So once again, I'm going to refresh this and see if Daisy's pattern has been changed with unassigned, and if so, we can proceed with that replacement. We could see that it has. So if I wanted to do the same thing, let's say we hired on a new employee named Pete. We've added him in the employee icon right here. He's already in our system. I could click on the 3rd right here, add, replace, or remove, replace an employee. On the 3rd, the employee that I want to assign right here is Pete Practice X, and then we want to replace that with our unassigned shift. If I process that, it's going to do the same thing that we just did, but instead replace Pete with that unassigned. Again, it's that revolving door method where if you like the patterns that you have for your full-time employees or your patterned employees up top, you could simply replace them with unassigned when they leave, and that way you can add someone to that unassigned or just simply replace them later on. So I could again hit refresh right here for that unassigned to change to Pete's name, and it hasn't yet. We'll come back to that here in a minute. The next thing that I want to show you, the last thing that I want to show you, is how to remove someone. And we'd only want to remove someone if maybe we're changing the pattern later on. So I could click on the 3rd here on Mickey. Let's say that he really didn't like to work here, and so that he's leaving. And that we don't like that pattern, so we just want to remove it completely and add a new pattern to that row. We can remove employee, select employee, go down to Mickey, and hit process. No, we don't want to notify him by text, and yes, we know it might take a minute for this to load. Right, and if I hit refresh right here again, we should see that Pete's pattern has been replaced with the unassigned, which we did up here at the top. We see Pete, and we still see Mickey here. If I click refresh again in a few seconds, we should see that Mickey's pattern is removed from this shift row. So again, we've gone over how to add using both pattern tools, how to replace, and how to remove an employee. Let's refresh this, and I'm going to move on to the next month to show you that these patterns continue month to month. I'm going to go to February, hit go, and you can see that these same patterns exist in February, that they've rolled over to the next month. This is why the pattern tool is so beneficial. All your employees who are consistently working the same days or a certain pattern, you could add through the pattern tool and not have to mess with them again unless they're being marked as absent or gone for the day or whatever it may be. So that is the pattern tools. Hope that all makes sense. If not, you could always visit our help center. Thank you so much.